By the way, happy holidays, everyone. These days, you don't need an excuse to have a little get-together at your place. You want to watch the big game or a New Year's party? Whatever. Stock your party with drinks from Drizzly, the go-to app for drink delivery. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com. That's DRIZLY.com. You can schedule drinks to be delivered up to 2 weeks in advance or in as little as 60 minutes. Plus, Drizzly helps you save dough by comparing prices on a huge selection of beer, wine, and spirits from local stores. So grab that to-do list of yours and cross out, go to the liquor store. Download the Drizzly app today or go to drizzly.com. Again, DRIZLY.com. No more going on beer runs or stressing out about finding a particular bottle of wine. Download the Drizzly app or go to drizzly.com, the go-to app for alcohol delivery. Must be 21, not available in all locations.
The Podcast Playground.
Hooray!
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito. If you like what you hear, please subscribe, give a 5-star rating, and leave a review. Check out all our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you pod. What if these celebrities weren't famous? What would they have become? What was their first job? We're about to find out.
This guy's got a lot of credits to mention. Ton of comedy specials. His most recent, What a Day, and You're Doing Great. Hosted the podcast Breaking Bread with Tom Papa. Played opposite Matt Damon in Steven Soderbergh's 2009 film The Informant. Hosts a radio show on Sirius XM satellite radio called Come to Papa. And the author of several books, including his latest, We're All in This Together, So Make Some Room. Stand-up comedian, funny guy, and our guest this week on Celebrity Jobber, comedian Tom Papa. Hey, Tom, how are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. How are you?
I believe we've met. Have you ever?
We have.
Yeah. Have you ever been to Marco Island?
Yes.
I think we met there back in the day while you were on tour. And speaking of being on tour, what happens on a typical day? You're out on tour. You got your gig at night for, an hour and a half or so, maybe 2 gigs at night. And what about the rest of the day? What fills up your day?
Starts off with coffee and a notebook.
Okay.
I'll go through. I usually spend some time writing and going through my act and seeing what I want to add, whatever ideas I have. Kind of tune up. Spend a couple hours on that. Usually hit the gym at some point, especially if I'm traveling through time zones, to keep nothing like freshens you up and makes you feel a little bit more normal than if you could just sweat a little bit.
Right.
And then and that's pretty much the day. And then before you know it, you're taking a quick nap and showering up and getting ready for the show. Is it boring out there on the road, or is that routine kind of what keeps you sane? Because I know a lot of stand-up comedians, and it's tough for some of them. They say it's tough being out there. I don't know. I don't find it tough. I mean, as long as the travel's going smooth, I'm okay with it. I think if you're not working on your act, if you're not writing, if you're not, I'm always writing. So it doesn't matter where I am. I'm always I either have a book deadline or I have my act that night. If I'm working, it's totally cool. If you're just drifting around and hanging out and looking for fun and want to watch game shows or drink at night, that's a recipe for a disaster. Yes, I could imagine. I could imagine. Well, yeah. You're a professional. I mean, this is my 3rd book, and so and it takes me about 1.5 years, 2 years for each book. So that means for the last 6-7 years, in addition to my act, every time I'm on a plane, every time I'm in a hotel, that laptop is opened and I'm going to work. I'm writing and I'm trying to tighten it up and edit, and there's always something to be done. So it's a lot of work, but it keeps you mentally healthy. And I think you are a great writer, Tom, and I think that's probably, comedy and writing, they go together. Like you mentioned, this is your 3rd book. It's called We're All in This Together, So Make Some Room.
and it's what is it? It's just a collection of short stories that are jokes. They're fun. They're funny.
Comedic essays. There's a theme pretty much that we are all in this together, and as much as people try and act like we all have our own tribes and we're all divided in certain ways, and cable news likes to act like we're all at each other's throats, the reality is day to day we're all in this together, and you can learn from the smart ones, you can learn from your family, you can even learn from the dummies that you encounter. You know, all it takes is watching one guy bounce off a trampoline into a ceiling fan, and you're like, all right, I'm not going to do that.
It's true. It's very true. And Tom, let me dig a little deeper here. You grew up in New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey.
Nice.
And you were born. Yeah, I know. I should probably stop saying that, but I still feel like there's some kind of connection between people that are from New Jersey, because it seems like the rest of the world doesn't really care for us, thanks to the Jersey Shore and other shows like that. So I always throw it out there, you know, when I look, hey, I'm from Jersey too.
Yeah.
What, you know what I mean?
100%. Yeah, there's some pride there. And that's why I became a comedian, I think. You know, when you grow up and you're a little kid and you realize your home state is a punchline to the rest of the nation.
It's true.
You learn to laugh at yourself pretty quickly.
So you were born in Passaic. I knew a kid named Danny Viteri from Passaic. He wore a jean jacket, had really bad acne, and you definitely did not want to screw with this guy. He was tough. And I know Passaic was a rough neck of the woods, but you didn't grow up there. You grew up where?
Yeah. A little further north. I was up in Park Ridge and Montvale, like northern New Jersey, right on the border of New York.
Very nice. And tell me a little bit about growing up. Mom and dad, what did you live with both mom and dad? What kind of jobs did they have?
Yeah, we had, I grew up in a big Italian-American family. We had, I'm one of 21 grandchildren.
Wow.
And it was the typical thing where we would meet most weekends over at Grandma's house, and we'd have these big meals and listen to these stories from all my aunts and uncles, and there were a lot of characters, a lot of funny storytellers. And it was a pretty great way to grow up. It really centered me with family, and you realized how you just have to laugh at each other and laugh, you know, everybody who was attacking each other, that was all out of love. You know, if someone was mocking you, that meant that they cared about you. And it was a great way to grow up, for sure.
And your dad, what kind of occupation or what kind of business was your dad in?
My dad was a salesman.
Okay.
And everyone in the family was straight. Everybody had a regular job. I didn't know anybody in the arts or anything, but as a young kid, I discovered that comedian. Around 7th grade, I realized, when I got introduced to George Carlin and Steve Martin and Bill Cosby, I realized, oh, this could be a job. Like, I was always funny, like, with my friends and hanging out at the pool, but when I realized, oh no, there's a job called comedian, that was it. That's
crazy to me. The 7th grade, it seems like such a young age to know what you want to do. I've got a 23-year-old kid in college, and he's afraid of graduating. He's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I didn't know what I wanted to do either. He's kind of stumbled into it. So to know it in the 7th grade that this is where you wanted to go is pretty impressive to me. But what about high school? Like, what were you do well in your writing classes in high school? You got good grades?
Yeah, I got. I just did enough to just stay out of trouble.
Okay.
Whatever I could do to keep my parents off of me was my goal.
Okay. And you moved to, was it Rider College you went to? What was your major when you went to school? What at that point in your life, you're 18, you're 19 years old, are you still, hey, I want to be a comedian? Or was it like a dream, like in the back of your mind, and then you were kind of had a vision of like a straight job somewhere
No, I was always kind of going after that.
Wow.
It was I started getting into the theater. I started acting. I started anything with the arts. I kind of just kept focused on that. It was like I knew for a fact that's where I was headed.
So what was your major at Rider?
Communications.
Oh yeah, I fell for that one too. But I didn't land in a comedy club, sir. I always
get a degree, and then you can go out there. And that's what I did.
That's I thought the same thing. But I try to tell young people today that it costs the same amount of money for an engineering degree. So that might not be a bad. But you turned it around, Tom. So in college. Tell me a little bit. Can you tell me about your first job, your very first paying job, which may not have been comedy? What was the very first job that you held?
It was in advertising.
Really?
A small advertising agency, because at least I could write. At least there was some writing involved. But it only lasted about a year or so before I made enough money in comedy to go off and quit my day job. So
that was your first job, even as a teenager. You didn't, paint houses
as a teenager, I had tons of stupid jobs. I worked, I cut lawns. I worked in restaurants. I did all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But once I graduated, that's what it was.
But advertising is a very creative job for creative people. So that's that could have been something that if comedy didn't work for you, I could see you being, in advertising, because it is a very creative job. You have to write. You have to come up with some really kooky ideas.
Exactly.
Wow. So it only lasted a year. Did it last a year because you were just not in love with it and in love with comedy, or did you get fired
I knew it was a pit stop. I knew it was just a pit stop. I was gonna be a comedian. So I was just wasting time.
Oh, okay. So how did that happen? You're doing some stand up, you're doing some open mics, and I hear you actually met a very famous comedian, which I don't know if you consider that your big break, but
that was the break. Once I met, you're talking about Jerry Seinfeld.
I'm talking about Jerry.
That was my big break.
Yeah.
Yeah, because as soon as he kind of gave me the approval, then it was like everybody else started to pay attention.
So can you tell me a little bit about that meeting? Was it just, you're just doing your thing, you're at the clubs, you're in New York, and you just run into Seinfeld? Was he Jerry Seinfeld? He wasn't the Jerry Seinfeld we know today.
He was coming back to the clubs and getting into stand-up, and he didn't know a lot of folks. And I was on stage 2 nights in a row, and when he walked in and he came up and said to me, "You're pretty funny." And he goes, he gave me some compliments, and I was blown away. And this was right after his TV show had ended, and I grabbed onto his coattails and never let go.
Oh, it's a great move. I'm so trying to find a set of coattails, man. And tell me a little bit about the writing aspect of when that became, because obviously, I try to be a student of comedy. I try to learn that it's you're not just up there riffing, trying to make people laugh. There's a real specific art form. There's a premise. There's all these different things. And writing, when you're a really great comedian, writing plays such a huge role. And tell me when you connected the dots with your writing in comedy, and how that's actually led you to writing books like you're doing now.
Yeah, well, I would finish my act on the road, and I'd be talking about people's families and stuff, and they were like, they wanted to continue the conversation. They wanted to talk more about their families and the funny stuff that happened to them. And I realized, well, there's more to be done here. I can go even deeper. I can be funnier and longer. And I started noodling around with the book idea, and it really kind of worked. As soon as I realized I can go into these bigger essays with stuff, I'd be able to kind of carry on this comedic conversation with these people.
Right.
And I just started working on those books.
There's no life story book out there. They're all pretty much in this type of, like essays and short. There's no, you don't have like a biography or an autobiography that you've written.
No, but they definitely are all about my life. It's my perspective. Everything kind of tends to go through family. It definitely has a lot of me in it. They are personal, but it's kind of the same thing with my stand-up. I use my life and I use my experiences, but then launch off of that and go further.
Is that hard, Tom, to get personal and the other people in your life? Does it ever cause any conflict, whether you write about somebody in the book or you say something?
I'm usually pretty kind-hearted. Once in a while, my father, more than anybody else, gets annoyed. He'll be like, "Why are you telling people I'm like that?" Well, that's who you are.
Well, man, I got to tell you, the 3 books. I think to write one book is incredible. I don't know how I'd even begin. When you start writing a book, does it seem like this is something, or let's say when you started writing your very first book, did it seem like this is something that's never going to end?
It's not that it's never going to end. It's that it's hard to start when you are faced with, okay, I need 300 pages and I have nothing. That's a pretty uncomfortable moment. But once you start plowing through and once you start getting stuff down and then you can go back and start reworking it, that's actually a lot of fun. That's like pretty gratifying.
Right.
It's really the blank page. The blank pages, that part is pretty terrifying. What am I going to talk about? Do I even have anything?
Yeah.
All of that, those kind of thoughts. But if you can get through that, you just got to push and realize it's not going to be great. Just put it down. Just get something down. It can be the worst thing in the world. Just do it. Just put it down with no judgment. That's the hardest part of the human being. We judge ourselves. We're very tough on ourselves. You have to let that go and keep yourself keep your judgment out of it. And just realize it's going to be bad in the beginning.
Right.
So just put it down. Just get all the bad stuff down and then go to work and make it better.
That's cool.
And that's the hardest part, but it's definitely doable.
Man,
give it a try.
I don't know. Let's baby steps here. Tom Papa, it's called We're All in This Together, so make some room, his new book. And man, it was great getting to know your story a little bit. And you're very interesting stuff. Again, a big fan of comedy, and it was great talking to you today.
Yeah, you too. I really appreciate it.
So it seems like Tom's first job, typical stuff when you're a teenager. He kind of lumped a few of them into the same category. Cut lawns, worked at restaurants, all of those quote unquote types of jobs when you're a teenager. But real first job, like out of college, worked in the advertising world. I thought that was kind of interesting because it is a very creative type of occupation, creating advertising campaigns, and Tom being, somewhat of a writer, as he is, obviously an author / comedian. He does a lot of writing. So that probably kind of played a big part in his first job out of college, which was in the advertising world. And yes, his big break, when I read that he met comedian Jerry Seinfeld in the 90s, and Seinfeld said, like, "Hey, you're a pretty funny guy. Come along with me." Yeah, I think that could have been a big break, and made no bones about it. That was the break. And then things just kind of opened up for Tom after that. It's amazing that one chance meeting with somebody like Jerry Seinfeld and how that could change your life trajectory. Not only stand-up comedian, author, actor, radio show host. Growing up, Tom's dad was a salesman, a regular job. If Tom didn't meet Jerry Seinfeld, he could have been working a regular job just like his dad, or back in advertising like he started right after college. It's that one thing that happens that changes your life. I have a feeling even if Tom was in the world of advertising, he'd be pretty successful. Well, thanks for listening once again. If you like this podcast, don't forget to leave a review. A 5-star rating would be much appreciated. And please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It's another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. We'll see you next week. I'm Jeff Zito.
The Podcast Playground.
Hooray!
Hey, I'm Kat, mom of 3 and founder of Ritual, the company setting a new standard in the supplement industry. When I was pregnant, I remember staring at my prenatal vitamins and thinking, what's in this stuff? All I found were vitamins high in heavy metals and lacking in the very essential nutrients we need. So we scoured the world for the best quality ingredients, backed by clinical studies, third-party tested, and Ritual's Essential Prenatal was born. Join our family of skeptics with 40% off your first month when you visit ritual.com/podcast.